A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam & Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad that you've joined us today. Coming up on the program here in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be talking with Alan Gottlieb from the Second Amendment Foundation, as well as the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, taking a closer look at what is happening in one American city in terms of the violent crime rate. But interestingly enough, at the Hill newspaper just a couple of days ago, Steve Krakauer had a opinion piece. The media is ignoring the violence that is tearing our cities apart. And he's largely talking about the national media here ignoring this violence. He writes, the New York Times has introduced a new term into our political lexicon, rage moms. We talked about this at Bearing Arms actually a few days ago, rage moms versus defense moms. Steve Krakauer says that an August 17th story described fired up mothers supporting protesters in Portland, Oregon. The caption on the story's photo declared the wall of moms that has emerged from the Portland protests is one of the latest examples of parents engaging in activism to strengthen the social safety net. Democrats, the Times said, are counting on these rage moms to help them win in November. Krakauer says, that's not the whole story of what's happening in Portland. He says, meanwhile, the Washington Post wrote a glowing profile of Portland's protesters, complete with a photo shoot in protest garb. The headline that protest is what Portland does best. He writes that these are just two examples of the absurd lengths to which the media has gone to glamorize the violent riots that have emerged from what began as peaceful protests around the country. Portland is not, he says, a model of peaceful protest, no matter how the media tries to spin it, through a bias of omission on the reality on the ground. And he's right about this. But, I think we're also talking about two different phenomena here when we're talking about violence in our cities right now. There is the politically motivated violence that Steve Krakauer is writing about, the daily or nightly destruction of property in Portland, Oregon, the attempts to burn down police stations and courthouses, the violence that we've seen in the streets of Chicago. I believe we had more arrests in Richmond, Virginia last night, as a matter of fact. So the national media is not focusing on that. Your local media will. For instance, the big riot that happened in Chicago a couple of weekends ago, very much downplayed by the national media, particularly while it was taking place in the early morning hours. And even then, it was, in the hours afterwards, it was kind of hard to find any mention of this. I noticed on Monday of this week, as I was going through some news stories, I ran across local stories out of Chicago talking about number of officers injured and arrests made. Seattle, another local story about officers injured and arrests made. Philadelphia, another story about arrests being made. But there was no one national news story from any of the broadcast networks, from none of the cable news networks, that kind of took all of this disparate bits of data from around the country, packaged it into one story, and then presented this of, look, here's what happened around the country this weekend. Steve Krakauer is absolutely right that the national media is ignoring this. And while the politically motivated violence is continuing, the street crime, everything from, armed robberies to carjackings, home invasions, shootings, homicides, those numbers are skyrocketing around the country. Absolutely skyrocketing. In Seattle, as a matter of fact, they have already reached a grim milestone. They have already reached the same number of homicides that they had in all of 2019. And we still have 4 months to go. Alan Gottlieb, again with the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms and the Second Amendment Foundation, sat down with me earlier today to talk about what's going on in Seattle and why it is a crystal clear example of why the gun control policies that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to put in place across the nation will fail to keep Americans safe, even as they ensure that Americans are disarmed. Take a look and a listen. Alan, thank you, sir, for joining me on the program today. It's good talking with you.
Always my pleasure, Cam.
I wish the news was better, unfortunately. In Seattle, Washington, the crime rate's going in the opposite direction. And as you all at the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms point out, this shouldn't be happening if gun control worked, right? If Governor Jay Inslee was correct and the mayor of Seattle was right about what these gun control laws would do, we'd be seeing violent crime decline instead of soaring.
That's true, particularly in light of the fact that this all started, so to speak, in 2014. Seattle and Washington State had pretty low crime. And then the Seattle-based Alliance for Gun Responsibility, one of the gun prohibition lobby groups that happen to be based here, that's funded not only by Michael Bloomberg nationally, but funded by wealthy Seattle area elitists like Steve Ballmer, who now owns the San Diego Chargers and former Microsoft billionaire, and Bill Gates, and former Paul Allen, who's not with us anymore, to the tune of 6 and 7 figure donations, helped push through an initiative that pushed through a so-called universal background check measure, but it was far beyond just that. It went much further. And then in 2015, the Seattle City Council and the mayor signed, they pushed through the so-called gun tax, and with this so-called gun and ammunition tax as well. What it did is it forced all the gun dealers out of Seattle, so people in Seattle had no place to go buy a gun. And then we just had, coming up in 2018, the same gun ban lobby rammed through an initiative that prohibited young adults from purchasing any kind of semi-automatic rifle and required an enhanced background check and a 10-day waiting period plus proof of training, making it more difficult for legitimate law-abiding gun owners to buy firearms for self-defense. All these things have contributed to the fact that the only people who have guns on the streets of Seattle are the criminals.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible that already Seattle has matched the homicide total for all of 2019. We still have 4 months left to go. So obviously that homicide rate is going to be higher, and it's been going up. 2019, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, but I think 2019, the homicide rate was higher than 2018. As you say, this goes back a number of years. If these initiatives were going to work, and even if gun control advocates want to say, well, you got to give it time to be on the books and really make a difference. All right, well, it's been 6 years since the quote-unquote universal background check law was implemented in Washington State. And as you say, there have only been more restrictions put on legal law-abiding gun owners ever since. I mean, how long are we supposed to wait to see these laws make a difference?
Well, that's a very good question, Cam, because they obviously already don't work and they're not going to. And the truth of the matter is the homicide rate and violent crime rate, in the Seattle area, is now up more than 50% since we started passing these anti-gun laws. 50% is not, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5%. I mean, at that point, it's a definitive, answer. I mean, all our people, our opponents all talk, we need to look at the science. Well, let's look at the science and look at the statistics. And when we see that gun control is a fallacy. It doesn't work at all. And, quite frankly, the gun prohibition lobby should apologize to Washington gun owners for what they've created here. I mean, this is just unbelievably horrible. All they've accomplished is a false sense of security while trampling on everybody's rights. And now, more people must die. The anti-gun extremists, should admit that they're wrong because they're killing people. It's horrible.
It is absolutely horrible. And you're right. I think the gun control advocates should apologize, but they're not going to. I mean, they're going to go the opposite direction. They want to impose these types of laws and worse, frankly, on every American out there. I know that, Joe Biden Thursday night delivered his campaign acceptance speech, did not mention gun control a single time, Alan, but we know what the Biden-Harris agenda is, and it's turning the entire country into a more restrictive version of what we already see in Seattle.
Yeah, I don't think he mentioned gun control per se, but he did mention taking on the gun lobby, which is a code word for, taking on gun owners in general. He's not our friend, and he's going to be out there sticking pins in us forever. And I mean, if he gets elected president, we are going to be in for 4 years of unbelievable attacks on our rights.
Yeah, I would actually say more than 4, because I worry about the Supreme Court and what Biden might be able to do, that would resonate for far longer than he's going to be in office. I mean, is Seattle, and should Seattle be a wake-up call for other Americans out there? I mean, can we extrapolate what's happening in Seattle and say, all right, you know what, if I'm not careful, if we get the wrong politicians in office, this could happen to me? This could happen to my city?
Oh, yeah, but you don't have to look just at Seattle. I mean, add Chicago, Baltimore, New York, Washington D.C. Add Atlanta. I mean, add a number of these places where you have anti-gun politicians in charge and in control, and it's the same pattern all over the place. So again, if you don't look just at Seattle statistics, look at the pattern of statistics all across the country.
Talking again with Alan Gottlieb. And Alan, before we let you go, I've got to ask you real quick about the Gun Rights Policy Conference. I know it's coming up. Going to be an all-virtual conference this year. I'm kind of sad that we're not going to get together in person, but I am pleased to be a part of the Gun Rights Policy Conference. Can you tell folks about how they can be a part of it as well?
Sure. SAF.org. You can register there, and then you'll get the updates for it if you register for the conference. But it's going to be streamed on multiple platforms online on September 19th and 20th. And we're hoping to reach millions of Americans this way, and it probably is going to be a blessing in disguise for us. We're going to have over 100 speakers, and Cam, you're one of them. And so I'm really excited about this because right now we're putting it all together, and then starting right after Labor Day, we'll kick off promotions of it to make sure that, tens of millions of Americans know where to go and tune into it. But again, if you go to saf.org and register for the conference, you'll get our updates on it.
Fantastic. Alan Gottlieb, thank you as always, sir, for joining me on the program. Thank you for what you do, and look forward to talking again very soon.
Thank you, Cam.
I appreciate Alan spending some time with us today, and we will be talking more about the Gun Rights Policy Conference, by the way, as we get closer to that event weekend. All right, let's now turn our attention to our armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We're going to start there. Case out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, where the suspect in a murder of a woman named Jacqueline Vigil, described as having a lengthy criminal history, despite the fact that he's been in this country illegally. As a matter of fact, KOB in Albuquerque, New Mexico, says Luis Talamantes, who has not yet been charged in Vigil's death, but he is considered a suspect, was in this country illegally, according to a 20-page motion filed by the U.S. Attorney's Office, asking a judge to give Talamantes 20 years behind bars for his illegal re-entry into this country. Since 2008, Talamantes has also been charged with domestic violence, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, shooting from a moving vehicle. He ended up spending about 4 years total in prison on those crimes before he was arrested in Colorado and then was deported for a third time. But prosecutors say 3 months after that deportation, he made his way back into the country illegally, and on November 19th of 2019, shot and killed Jacqueline Vigil in her driveway. Now, Talamantes is scheduled to be sentenced on federal charges of re-entering the country illegally next month. Prosecutors say that no matter what happens, that will not deter them from seeking justice in the death of Jacqueline Vigil. DA's office says, quote, the federal case won't impact our ability to prosecute Luis Talamantes for the murder of Jacqueline Vigil. We will not have to wait for his federal sentence to end, which is a good thing. But again, Luis Talamantes should not have been out on the streets of Albuquerque in November of 2019. Apparently should not have even have been in the United States for a third time. Our armed citizen story of the day from Florida, Escambia County, Florida, where a burglar who admitted to cops that he was a little high, held at gunpoint by a resident. This is like most offensive gun uses across the United States. No shots were fired, but the presence of that firearm in the hands of a law-abiding resident was enough to prevent this crime from escalating any further, as well as ensuring that this individual actually was arrested. 35-year-old Matthew Arrington Havard, now charged with felony burglary of an occupied building, already released, by the way, on $5,000 bond there in Escambia County, Florida. A resident told the Escambia County Sheriff's Office that he was at home on his computer. It was just after 9 o'clock Monday night when he noticed Havard somehow had gotten inside the house. Havard immediately raised his hands when he was confronted. The resident grabbed his handgun, led Havard back outside. The man and his grandmother, who actually owns the home, were both inside the residence at the time. Both told deputies they'd never seen Havard before. Sheriff's Office said home security video shows Havard arrive in a Chevy pickup truck, then walk through an open garage door and into the residence through a side door. Havard told an Escambia County Sheriff's Office deputy that he had smoked spice and methamphetamine a couple of hours prior to the incident, didn't know where he was. Kind of surprised. I mean, I know he's been charged with burglary of an occupied vehicle or occupied building. Kind of surprised he hasn't been charged with, DUI, since he rolled up there in a pickup truck, admitted to officers that he was high on spice and meth, but no charges for that. But again, the burglary of an occupied dwelling. So a couple of things here. I'm glad that Mr. Havyard is alive and well. Glad the homeowner and his grandmother are alive, or glad the homeowner and her grandson, I should say, are alive and well. Keep your doors locked. Again, I don't care how safe a neighborhood you think you live in. Keep your doors locked. Keep your garage door down. Make sure that your home is not an inviting target for criminals. Whether or not you're a gun owner, there are some simple things that you can do to, put up a couple of barriers to entry and making sure that somebody can't just, open up a door and walk inside. That would be a very basic way to help protect you and your family. I bet they've learned their lesson after this most recent incident, don't you think? Finally, today, our good deed of the day. I want you to take a look at this picture. Sorry, it's not landscape. Sorry, it's still in portrait mode, but this is from New York State, Warren County, New York, the town of Chester. And this is a screen capture from a video taken by a woman named Heidi Schmidt. This is the moment that a Warren County Sheriff's deputy helped two elderly women cross a busy road there in the town of Chester. Schmidt lives and works in Chester. She was eating lunch with her son in Lake George Wednesday afternoon when she noticed the women struggling to cross the road. She said that she was actually getting ready to get up and she was going to go outside and help these women cross the road when she saw the deputy approach and start to help them across. Again, a very simple thing, not a big deal. Kind of surprised that News 10 there in New York State actually even bothered to report on this, but I'm glad that they did. Coincidentally, they know that the town of Chester and Warren County adopted a resolution during their last town board meeting on Tuesday night of this week, showing support and respect for law enforcement officers and the work that they perform daily. Town board member Karen DeRose says, "We felt it was important to show support for the local police officers and the first responders working hard daily in this town." So the idea for the resolution came after a Back the Blue parade that the community had organized 3 weeks ago. And just a little reminder, again, of the job that law enforcement performs each and every day, most of the time, not getting headlines or any attention for stuff like that, but in the right place at the right time, well, and able to do the right thing to ensure a couple of our senior citizens could get to where they needed to go safely. We thank that Warren County Sheriff's deputy for his very good deed. That is all the time we've got for you on this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I really appreciate you being a part of the program as well. Hope you have a great weekend. I'd say happy shooting. If you can find any ammunition around, good luck to you with that. I'm actually going to be stopping by my local gun store on the way, this afternoon. See if there is anything in stock. Because I've gotten to the point now where I hate dipping in to my stash right now. I don't like seeing that stash decline. I don't know when I'm going to be able to restock. So not all of us can be like our friend Rick Ector from Legally Armed in Detroit and have that, one-on-one connection with a ammunition manufacturer. I'd love it. By the way, if there are any ammunition manufacturers who would like to talk, I'm here at Cam Edwards on Twitter. Let me know. But in the meantime, again, hope you have a fantastic weekend. Be safe, be well, be free, and we will talk to you soon. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, one bit of a program note. Monday, we will not have a Bearing Arms Cam & Company because I am scheduled to be in a dentist office chair getting a filling. So yay for that. Probably not going to talk with my mouth all numbed up. That'd be kind of difficult. So we'll take Monday off. We'll be back on Tuesday of next week with much more of the latest Second Amendment news and information. Until we talk again, be well, be safe, be free, and we'll see you soon with another edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company.